what I noticed on the streets is that, people that battle mental health issues, people that battle homelessness, people that are battling addictions, people that have been incarcerated, they relate to each other. And there were these micro communities all over the place. And these micro communities were some of the most generous places that I've ever been. Yet I could walk into one of the fanciest houses ever built, owned by some of the richest people on the face of the planet, and potentially meet some of the most homeless people that I've ever met.
A few months ago, a buddy of mine had reached out to me and told me that I needed to meet this man named Alan Graham. He's the founder of an organization called Loaves and Fishes. And I thought I was just going to learn and we were going to hear about his organization. But I can tell you, we got off this conversation and I was so inspired and moved towards a sense of dignity and empathy towards people that are the outcast of our society. This guy's organization is a 51-acre community village outside of Austin, and they offer car care, a culinary program, an organic farm, an art house, a blacksmith shop, and even run the largest tiny home bed and breakfast in the country. You're going to be blown away, not just by the work that they do, but the why behind they do it. Enjoy this conversation with Alan Graham. Hey friends, I'm Chris Bennett. I'm here with my beautiful wife, Julie.
Hey everyone.
Together, we're going to explore the life-changing power of family.
So pull up a chair, grab a cup of coffee, and join us on Finding Family.
We are so excited for our episode today with our new friend, and we have a mutual friend named Matt Freeman who told me about this man, Alan Graham, a few months ago and said, you guys have to meet. And Alan's the founder and chief executive officer of Loaves and Fish, which is located in the Austin, Texas area. And we're going to jump into the story a little bit, hear about Alan and the work they're doing, because I think it's going to inspire all of us to be a part of really the work that God's wanting to do among the outcasts that many of us live around. So Alan, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here. Appreciate it, Chris and Julie. This is awesome and a blessing. Thank you.
Well, I know that, reading a little bit of your story and your background, I know you were involved as a real estate investor and developer. Tell us a little bit about your background, and then how did you get into the work that you're doing now?
Well, I got into the real estate business in 1978. I was a frustrated student at the University of Texas and working in a photomat booth, a little kiosk in a parking lot of a grocery store. It was pretty miserable. And a friend of mine was in the real estate business at that time and talked me into joining him in that work. And it was an entrepreneurial godsend to me. And because I never was a good student, I never really liked school to begin with. Maybe I'm partially ADD, or maybe I was smoking too much weed back in the day. I don't know. One of those.
Or the combo.
Yeah. Just kind of marching along in life. And but in 1996, my wife and I were married in 1984 and started having children in 87. And she started going, taking the kids. Both of us are kind of workaholic type people, every day brainstorming, doing things. But she started going back to church, taking our kids. And I remember one Sunday kind of reading the newspaper and about to get up and go shower and go into the office for a couple hours to get ready for the week. And the door opens up and there she's going out to go to church. I don't remember how many kids we had at the time, 2 or 3 of the 5 that we ultimately had. But it looked to me like the train was leaving the station. Mm-hmm. And that's not a place that I wanted to be. I didn't have a good relationship with my dad. My brothers and I didn't. He left us when we were all pretty young, and my mother battled a lot of mental health issues. So it was kind of a crazy thing during the 60s and 70s. And so I decided to jump deep into my faith and learn as much as I could. I'm Roman Catholic, and I wanted to know why Catholics did all the crazy things that they do. And then, I fell in love with the church. I fell in love with the heresies. I fell in love with the schisms. I fell in love with the Reformation. I fell in love with the wars and the sin and the unbelievable train wreck that we as Christians have been for 2,000 years. Yeah. Yet in the middle of that is this nucleus, this corpus that represents the complete body of Christ that not only has survived, but has thrived throughout that period of time. So I built a very intellectual relationship with Christ, but not a heart relationship. And then in 1996, I went on a men's retreat where guys, had I known that men were going to hold hands, I would have never gone. And God forbid that bromance, hugging it out thing that we do. Yeah. And I go to this deal, and it's every bit of that plus more. And by the end of this 30-hour retreat, I'm just a filleted human being. Wow. Asking God, what do you want me to do? So,
oh my gosh. Okay. Amazing. So, I mean, hopefully I'm getting this right. You guys started Mobile Loaves and Fishes, and you guys have this community first village, which, what I read was 19,000 volunteers that have been a part of this, 5 million meals served. And you guys have created this whole community for people that have experienced homelessness. That's where it is. And that's where I'm sure it's going to continue to grow. But take us back to how this entry point came, where you took kind of your experience as a developer in real estate, all those things, and then taking your faith to start trying to tackle this thing of homelessness. How did that even happen?
Well, after that retreat, I was just asking God, what do you want me to do? I wasn't asking God to get me out of what I was doing. I was just, what do you want me to do, God? And I'll be a lector or Eucharistic minister. I'll join the Knights of Columbus, whatever. I'll go do these things. And then in 1998, my wife and I were having coffee with a girlfriend of ours, and she was telling us about a ministry in Corpus Christi, Texas, where on cold winter nights, multiple churches, multi-denominational, would come together, pool their resources, and take out to the men and women on the cold streets of Corpus. And Chris, Julie, at that moment, the idea of a catering truck came into my brain as a distribution vehicle from those of us that have abundance to those that lack. And I'm a serial entrepreneur. I went to bed that night. I didn't share the idea at that time. I'd already taken my wife on the entrepreneurial roller coaster multiple times, so I wasn't ready to share that idea. But about a week into this deal, I finally go, hey, sweetie, I've got this idea that I need to share with you that I think God's put on my heart. And she just looked at me and said, oh, my God, here we go again.
I embrace myself.
Yeah. And, I was on point. And I started sharing it with some buddies of mine. And next thing you know, we raised quite a bit of money, relatively speaking, and went out and bought this catering truck. And it's just been nonstop for nearly a quarter of a century. It's been an incredible journey. But one of the things about that truck that goes to where the people are, as opposed to herding people, say, to a soup kitchen, is that the people that are serving and those being served are on the same side of the serving counter. Wow. Which requires this one-on-one, intimate, human-to-human, heart-to-heart connection. And I particularly, and we as an organization, began to fall in love with the most despised, outcasts, lost and forgotten, crack addicts, glue sniffers, prostitutes, convicted felons. Just fell in love with them, began to hear their stories. And in 2003, I started going out on the streets and spending the night with them. And I've spent about 250 nights on the streets now. And now you're really becoming intimate with people. And what I learned from their stories, common denominator, almost without exception, is that every one of them came out of a traumatic, cataclysmically broken family background. Because I know, and I don't even know you guys, that in your family, you got a dope addict, an alcoholic, or somebody battling mental health issues right now. Or you have somebody battling cancer, which you did. None of our families escaped this, but somehow up underneath the dysfunction of particularly addiction and mental health issues, we don't allow our family members to find themselves out on the street corners and underneath our bridges. So our philosophy that the single greatest cause to homelessness is a profound, catastrophic loss of family begin to surface. And today, all the data supports that deal. And so that's where the advent of Community First flows out of. I can't recreate your nuclear family, but I could recreate and build a forged family around you, which is almost as important or more important than the nuclear family.
Got a little bit of everything.
When our kids were young, I remember the biggest challenges we faced consistently were finding healthy habits and routines to help us in the morning and the evening to stay connected, which is why we're so excited to partner with our friends at Loam. If you go to withloam.com/findingfamily, enter in the code FINDINGFAMILY, our listeners will get 1 month free. And on there, you're going to find routines, healthy habits, and even some Bennett family routines that we've used over the years. So check it out and enjoy this episode sponsored by Loma. And another way you can help support the show and be more connected to the Finding Family community is join our Patreon group. You'll receive bonus interviews, exclusive content, a monthly Q&A with me and Julie, and lots more. So check us out on Patreon. How, because I'm just trying to think practically of even people listening, because there is a pandemic of loneliness, and there's a pandemic of, whether it's literal homelessness or emotional homelessness, where people are so disconnected from that sense of family. How did you guys begin to, and how do you build that, forge that family for people that have lost it in this way?
Well, I read a book in 2008 called Beyond Homelessness, Christian Faith and a Culture of Displacement, written by a couple of moral theologians, PhD guys. Mm-hmm. And in there, it talks about the phenomenology of home. And within the phenomenology of home, there are 8 characteristics. And I'm going to rattle through these, but I'm going to talk about one in particular.
Love it.
Home is a place of permanence. Home is a place of affiliation. Home is a place of embodied inhabitation. Home is a place of safety and refuge. Home is a place of hospitality. Home is a place of orientation. And I'm forgetting a couple here, but the 8th one is home is a place of affiliation and belonging. And it turns out that you and I like to be around people like you and I. Right. And so what I noticed on the streets is that, people that battle mental health issues, people that battle homelessness, people that are battling addictions, people that have been incarcerated. They relate to each other. And there were these micro communities all over the place. And these micro communities were some of the most generous places that I've ever been. Yet I could walk into one of the fanciest houses ever built, owned by some of the richest people on the face of the planet, and potentially meet some of the most homeless people that I've ever met.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it was a contrast, and it fits right into your narrative, Chris, that you were talking about, that there's a disconnection here in the United States of America. And then the pandemic really accentuated that disconnection. And we talk about how we today, Americans, live in these hermetically sealed single-family sarcophaguses that we call the American dream, the single-family house in these single-family neighborhoods with 8-foot tall privacy fences, swimming pools, sport courts, and barbecue pits in our backyard, with front porches about the size of an iPhone Plus. And we don't welcome people in. We go in and we isolate. We got the internet spewing in. We got air conditioning. We got our own food.
Yeah.
We don't need each other. So in reality, we've become very disconnected from one another. And our goal here in the village is to create a community with very small spaces, with a myriad of opportunities to connect human to human, heart to heart. And the number one connector, human to human, heart to heart, turns out to be food. Not things like sex or, whatever. It's food. That's how we begin relationships. And so that's basically what we've done. And now, I live in the middle. I'm in my home right now in the middle of this community. And it's just a glorious place.
What makes, you've said this a little bit, but when you talk about that, what makes them so generous? What makes the community that you're a part of? What makes those that you have been able to experience and do life with so generous compared to the rest of the world?
Well, I think there's a natural tendency for you and I to hoard. We're going to, we're going to hoard our money. We're going to, but what I found is that people who have nothing tend to share everything.
Wow.
And so, that was kind of a foundational premise. It amazes me to watch people reach in their pocket and grab their last $5, $10, or $20 bill and hand it to me as a gift. And, I grew up as a kid, if I had a Snickers bar, I didn't want you to see that I had one, and I would go hide in the closet to take a bite. It's just that spirit, that's out there. And to me, they transform that paradigm of generosity. They have nothing, yet they give everything.
Which sounds like the gospel, right? When Jesus talks about, like giving, sharing, all those things, I don't know, I'm just trying to think about, like, we live in LA and, sometimes it's overwhelming to know even how to, or it's like, oh, I'm going to hand this person a dollar bill and I'm going to feel good about myself because I did something. And what I'm hearing you saying is I'm sure you guys have been transformed as much as the individuals that have come through this, not even just a program, but this community. The thing that I was so amazed by that I'd love you to talk about a little bit is I know that y'all built this village, this 51-acre village, filled with tiny homes, right? And I saw that the community works aspect of what you guys do is it's so holistic, where it's not just getting somebody off the streets, it's not just feeding them a meal, but the dignity and helping them understand the gifts they've been given, because everybody, God's designed to do things and to be gifted in certain ways. And I would imagine you guys are helping awaken some dreams in people as well. Can you tell us a little bit about the community works and how that's kind of placed dignity and value, and what that's done for these friends?
Well, all of this flows out of the book of Genesis, chapter 2, basically. And if you recall, just after God created the heavens and the earth and all the stuff, there was this barren land. There was nothing there. There was no water to nourish the land and no man to till the soil. But suddenly, this water began to bubble up out of the ground. And water, obviously nourishes you and I. But the water of Genesis is also a prefiguration of the baptismal waters of Christ. So it's got a very dual purpose. And now the grass and the trees are growing and things are starting to happen. And God needed man. So he reached out of the heavens and grabbed a clump of clay and began to mold. And when you think about molding, Chris, if you'll just reach over there just for a second and touch Julie's face for me, will you, right here? Like you're molding her. Yes. And this is what God was doing to us. Now, I'm not going to ask you to do this next step in the podcast, but after you had Julie molded, or Julie had you molded, God needed to breathe life into your nostrils. And both of these acts, the molding and the breathing life into the nostrils, is about as intimate as it possibly can be. Because you just can't blow at Julie right now from where you are and breathe life. You actually have to go in and do that. And I believe that God in that moment is mirroring what he wants us to do with each other. Okay. And then God creates the Garden of Eden, creates all the goodness inside the garden. And then in Genesis chapter 2, verse 15, he then takes the man, settles him in the Garden of Eden to cultivate and care for it. So settle, cultivate, care. Or, in some versions, it's place, which is settle, to place, to till it, to work it, and to tend it, to care for it. But the settle, cultivate, and care, that's the model of what we built here, right out of that Genesis chapter 2, verse 15. And community works is built around the idea that God wants us to use the gifts that he is giving each of us for the betterment of the kingdom, so that we can too care for it. Because I will tell you this. In the history of all of mankind, never, ever, 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 ever was there a little boy or girl laying in bed at night at 12 years old, in that moment between being awake and asleep, looking out the window at the starry night, dreaming ever about being a crackhead, a glue sniffer, a prostitute, and homeless on the streets of anywhere. In them were these embers of what they wanted to be when they grew up. I had three big dreams. One, a rock star. I played guitar. You can see one in the background here.
Saw that.
I played football. I thought I could be an NFL star, but if you saw me physically, you'd realize that was laughable. Or I wanted to be a jet fighter pilot, and none of those have come true. But the embers of those dreams needed people to pour fuel on those embers, so that the ultimate dream would ultimately manifest out of that. And so that's the purpose of our community works program, is to give people purpose and then to value them for that purpose, whether they're cleaning toilets or creating art at the level of Van Gogh, whatever it is between those two guideposts. People want to work. They just want to work. They want to be purposeful.
Wow. So good.
You know, and our friend Dave, our producer, we were just briefly talking right before we started. Like, you know, you look at just the heart of really the gospel. I mean, so many of us, I'll just say it like that. Yeah. There's so many, sometimes we want to see this. The world sees a representation of the gospel of, you know, my rights and what I have the right to do and what we are fighting to, versus like we actually lay those down, you know, and that's what you guys have done. And that's what we're learning from you. You know, you can watch a 3-minute little video that you guys have put together and like, wow, it's actually about laying it down. And that's the essence of the gospel. And so I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for inspiring us by just the way you've lived of laying it down. And that's the true picture of the gospel. So,
well, I think, Julie, the gospel is community first, not me first.
yeah.
Right.
But we live in a country constitutionally where it's me first.
Yeah.
And us second. And that's hurting us.
Yeah.
And we got to get back to this sense of community so that all of us can flourish individually.
So could you maybe, I got just a couple last things for anybody listening that is stirred, inspired, you know, this resonates. What would you encourage somebody listening to take a step towards being a part of bringing solutions and help to those that are in need in whatever level? Where do you start?
Well, you know, Austin, Texas is one of the cities du jour today. So it's pretty easy and inexpensive to jump on an airplane and come down here. And you can come to the live music capital of the world, but you can also come into the most talked about neighborhood in the world, and that's the Community First Village. And we'd love to get people to come on down. Short of that, go on our website and check out these videos that you guys were talking about, and seeing what we can accomplish together when you know and you care about your neighbor and who your neighbor actually is. And that doesn't include the people it includes the people in the house next door, but it also includes the people on the street corner down the street from where you are. These are our neighbors. So just roll the window down and begin to communicate with people. It's not that hard.
Yeah, that's good.
And is the plan to export this, kind of reproduce this in different cities?
What the plan is to give everything that we've learned and are continuing to learn to anybody who wants it. And so we have a replication process where, you know, hundreds of people have come from around the world. And there's about 20 replicators in the U.S. right now in their cities. And so we're looking for those people who want to replicate what we're doing to come down here and learn from us so that we can learn from them.
So basically, Julie and I need to get to Austin very quickly. Need to come see you. Come see it firsthand. We do want to.
Yeah. It's an easy flight out of LA, actually. So, nonstop right into Austin, Texas.
I love it. Well, Alan, I love who you are. I mean, we can feel your heart. It's so pure, and I can't imagine the sacrifices, and maybe I'm sure you don't see it that way, maybe, but the things you've done to make a way for a lot of people to experience what they're experiencing, the freedom, the dignity, the belonging. So thank you for the work that you're doing, and we will encourage everybody listening to go check out what you guys are doing, to be a part, whether that's giving or jumping in a practical way, because we believe in you and believe in the work that you guys are doing. So thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you guys a lot. Dave in the background, wherever you are. There you are. Yeah. Great.
All right. Hopefully we'll talk soon, Alan.
Thank you,
Blessings
Alan.
to you.
Thank you, guys.
We're not done yet. Get that coffee refill because it's time to unpack. Jules, I'm a big fan of Alan Graham. And did you notice he did look a lot like Bob Goff? Did you notice this?
He did. He did.
And like so inspiring. There's a few takeaways. Do you want me to jump in or you want to go first?
Yeah.
You got a little teary-eyed at one point, but I didn't know why.
You did too.
I know.
Oh, you did.
Yeah,
sorry.
no, you did. No, you did.
Like, I did. Yeah, I feel very, it was like a somber, I felt like a holy moment. There we go. I'm going to use that language. Like there was something holy about it. It was like a somber, I was like, I don't have any questions. I was taking it in. And as you guys realize, I mean, it wasn't, I'm sure you guys stay engaged because somebody that's sharing not a good idea or something, yes, the world needs or we should do, but has lived it, walked it, and is reproducing it, and is such a picture of really what love is, what really the gospel is that we believe as followers of Jesus. And you know that it's powerful. And so I feel very somber. And I don't know why. I feel very chill.
Yeah, he said, kind of on the front end about homelessness is the result of a profound, catastrophic loss of family. And, we kind of talked about people that are homeless in the very real sense of they do not have a place to sleep, a shelter, but the, kind of epidemic of like homelessness of the heart, and people are looking for this place of belonging. And I think, Jules, to your point, it's like really, it is humbling when you're hearing somebody who's like doing something in such a profound way to eradicate homelessness in people's hearts,
Yeah. And I mean, he was talking about the nuclear family. All of us have dysfunction. We know someone, he said that, he has cancer or is an addict or you name it. Yeah. But so many times we're working that out within the nuclear family, which we should be able to be there for each other and do that. But here people have found themselves on the streets for multiple different reasons because of that. And, we've talked a lot about that in our different experiences, working with homeless and watching different organizations bring their part to, the table, if you will, just really that whole, the narrative on homelessness is not always what we think it is.
Right.
That's obviously a really big, broad, all encompassing, but it's so different. And I think it was just another reminder to me that when I see somebody on the street, my job is not to judge that. Well, if they're not in the right mind, I probably won't stop and talk to them, or if they're this or that. It's just people need our smiles. People need our hugs. People need, whatever we can give to them, and it's not just one thing, I even think, I don't know did you say this just a second ago, but like how he remembered our names. He said them. He
did multiple times,
numerous times. And he even, our producer, Dave, in the corner, as he said, I think he really felt for you in the corner over there, Dave. He's like, hey, outcast over there. They won't let you be in the screen to see me. But those are the things that.
No, wait, you didn't say. What was Dave saying though about that interview? So basically.
Oh, sorry. No, yeah, go ahead.
No, Dave was just saying because he listened to a video of Alan talking, and basically one of his things is like he was like, I'm going to learn the name of every person I meet on the streets. And that he spent 250 nights up to this point living on the streets. So that when we're talking about how do you place dignity and you think, well, golly, I don't even know what to do. This person's homeless. What am I supposed to bring them in my house? But like the starting place is dignity and value. And so I even, when he would say Chris and Julie, it's such a simple thing, but what did you feel? Like you immediately felt connected. You felt like, oh, he actually cares about me. Yeah,
it's value. I mean, and when he talks about the outcast or the homeless, people living in the community, the people that have the least are the most generous. Yeah. And when he talked about why that was, I was like, wow, yes. We think the ultimate dream is to be the most protected, wealthy, in our little cul-de-sac life of, we ironically used to live on a cul-de-sac, and I love that cul-de-sac. But, just that whole picture of our front porches are the size of an iPhone. So he said like that. We build that and then we build an iPhone Plus. But yet we build all the safe, protective giant walls. And again, it's not that there's something wrong with that. It's the picture that then if that's the goal, what we do, we start to then become, okay, I have to stay safe because it's all about me. And we don't even realize we do. We could be I'm sure the hearts are great, but we all kind of want that.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're really honest, there's something in us because we want to be protected. We want all the things, but it keeps us from being generous, and we can subconsciously as a culture and as a world not realize that that's what's happening. Yep. And I raise my hand to I can do that all the time.
She did raise her hand, by the way. Those
and
are
I
listening.
did.
She
If you
actually
raised my hand in just anyway.
I love what he said is that food is how we begin relationships. Yeah. Because again, if we're going to how do you put skin on this? Okay, dignity. Wow, just learning someone's name. Or inviting them into your home. And we've talked about this on a previous podcast, but just that whole thing of when the Bible talks about hospitality, it means the love of the stranger. And it's we see it with Jesus where he would meet somebody, he would invite them to follow him, or they would be curious. And the next thing we would find is he's in their home sharing a meal with them. And there's just something that's levels the playing field. There's something that barriers get broken through around food in relationships. So I don't know. I think they've done that in a really profound way, just even through, creating meals together.
That's really good, babe. And, I think at the end of the day, just like we mentioned how he specifically called out our names, thought about Dave in the corner, I feel inspired and motivated to think about the ways I can make people more valued in the day in and day out. Even to my own kids, yes, I remember my kids' names every day, but how can I place even more value in them as my children in my home? And then what does that look like? Living as if my front porch isn't like an iPhone, plus. I want to live as if I have a giant porch where everyone's welcome. That may not be literal, but I want to live my life like that. So we are encouraged, hope you're encouraged to think about those things. What does that look like in your daily lives, from the person on the street to in your job? Even if you're sitting in front of a desk, there's so many things that we can do. So we encourage you to place value on those in front of you each and every day.
Thanks for joining us for this episode with Alan Graham on the Finding Family
podcast. Thank you so much for listening today. The best way you can help us get this message of family out to the world is by taking a minute to subscribe, leave a rating and review, and please share. You can also visit our site, findingfamilypodcast.com, and follow us on Instagram to stay connected.
And one more thing. Have you ever listened to an episode and found yourself wanting to hear more from our guests, or thought, man, I'd sure love to get more connected with Chris and Julie? I know you have. If so, you can become a member of our Finding Family Patreon and receive exclusive content and ways to interact with us and our community. Just go to findingfamilypodcast.com and subscribe. Thanks again to our sponsors at Loam. You can learn more by going to withloam.com/findingfamily.
This episode was produced by Dave Hanso and edited by Will Cotterill and is a production of Welcome Home Entertainment. Original music written and performed by Drew Holcomb.